Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. Scotland's First Minister on protecting the landscape from future wildfires.
We have to carefully design an approach to land management that commands the confidence of as many people as we can.
We'll have more from John Swinney later. First, we've been talking a lot on this programme about the extremely hot and very dry summer endured by much of the country. But even in areas which have had rain, the harvest is still early. In Cumbria, the wheat crop has ripened a good 2 or 3 weeks ahead of its usual schedule. But as the summer progresses, the weather is a bit less predictable. Helen Millican has been to see how one Eden Valley farmer near Penrith is managing his harvest balancing act.
The sound that I think brings a sigh of relief for Andrew Hodgson, that slow and stately progress of this great yellow beast that almost blends in to the rather undulating field of wheat in the shadow of Crossfell.
It certainly looks good, and when I've been sat on the combine with the lad that drives it for us, the tank's filling up quick and it looks to be big rows of straw. It's had rain at the right time as this crop. We haven't suffered with the drought here as much as there has down country.
And it's been a bit stop-start. Tell me the tale of the last few days.
We were going to cut yesterday. There was a really good breeze, and then after all this dry weather, it actually rained Friday night. So it was too wet to cut yesterday. We came up this morning and tried to cut some around 10 o'clock this morning, and it was still 18% moisture. Well, I want it down to 15, which it's at now.
Just how crucial is that decision when to cut?
Well, I came up here this afternoon and I decided I was going to cut it whatever, because it is a chance of thunder showers this week. Yeah, as it turned out, it is dry, but if it was still 17%, it was going to get cut anyway and I would get my dryer out. You haven't really to miss an opportunity. It would look a bit daft if I decided, we'll wait another day for it and try and get it perfectly dry, and then it rains for the next fortnight.
How far still to go? And how much of a race against time? Because there are a few clouds bubbling up.
I've 24 acres of wheat to cut altogether, so I'm hoping I'll get that cut this afternoon, and then the straw bale tomorrow. We'll possibly move into spring barley tomorrow. We did actually try spring barley this morning, and I don't think it is quite ripe. But again, I'll sort of look at the forecast, and it is early enough for spring barley, but if the weather is going to change and it's going to rain for a fortnight, I'd rather have it in the barn and dry it than leave it on the field and lose grain and straw.
We do have that fantastic haze that you get.
Yeah.
There's something quite compulsive about watching a combine. It doesn't get in a hurry, does it?
Well, you can't hurry them. If you go too fast, it spills the grain. That's, partly the beauty of having my own machine. I can go a bit steadier. I'd rather cut 4 acres an hour with it rather than 5 acres. Slower but faster. Don't push the machine, let it go at its own pace and do the job correctly. If things go at their own pace, you've less chance of breakdowns.
They can be a bit temperamental, these machines, can't they?
Well, all machines can, but a lot of it's down to the operator. As I say, if you push something too hard, well, it starts with when you sow it. You sow it and there'll be stones come out. So you pick the stones when you roll it and make sure all the preparation's right. And if you do your preparation, when you do come to harvest it, providing the sun's shining and you've grown a clean crop, it goes like clockwork, really.
And is it an art or is it a science?
Pot luck. You want to get it as near perfect as possible, but the weather dictates how perfect you can get it. This is coming off at 15%, but I've seen us have to cut it at 25% just to get it. If you don't cut it at 25%, you don't get it some years. This year we've been really lucky with the weather.
Farmer Andrew Hodgson there in Cumbria. Well, as we know, it's not just the arable harvest, but food production in general, which has faced a difficult time this summer. New analysis by the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit of the cost of the exceptional heat and drought on cereal crops shows farmers across the UK could lose as much as £390 million in revenue. Its report estimates the grain harvest could be down by as much as 2.5 million tonnes. The The hot weather has also reduced milk yields, partly because of the low grass growth. Last week, the National Farmers Union estimated a drop of 18.5 million litres so far. So how serious are the financial implications for farmers this year, and possibly in years ahead too? Tom Lancaster is Head of Land, Food and Farming at the ECIU.
The average effect of the drought and the heat waves is that it's on course to be one of the worst harvests on record. This is climate change in the here and now. Is exactly what climate models have been predicting for decades, as they have been predicting the warmer, wetter winters that we've also seen recently. The winter we just had was in parts of England one of the wettest on record, and yet we've got this sort of weather whiplash where farmers are having to contend with incredibly wet weather, which presents its own challenges in terms of managing crops, but also livestock, and then straight into just completely unprecedented heat waves and drought. I guess many farmers now will be thinking, what crops can I plant after 3 years of successive poor harvests, really high input costs? What's going to generate a return for those farmers? And many will be scratching their heads, I guess.
It's not just cereals, though. What about dairy?
So we looked at again, HDB data on deliveries of milk from farms to dairies, and we found that in the May and June heatwave, a sort of unprecedented impact that reduced deliveries of milk to dairies by the equivalent of 25 million pints across those two heat waves. And that's partly because of where it fell in the year. At the sort of peak moment for milk production, just placed dairy cows under really significant physiological stress. What it does indicate is a bit of a sort of canary in the coal mine for the dairy industry, with the extreme heat that we've experienced this year and the likelihood of that extreme heat recurring much more frequently as the climate warms in the future.
Well, that heat wave was back in May. We've had more than that.
Absolutely. And what farmers are now having to contend with after not just that heat, but the absence of rainfall across much of the country. We've just seen the driest July on record in England and Wales, the driest ever month recorded across much of southern England, and that will mean that grass isn't growing, and farmers are now increasingly having to feed silage that they would have hoped to have kept back for winter just to maintain that productivity, and that's storing up costs for the winter for many farmers. And you can see that repeated across farming, with reports of vegetable growers and potato growers and pea growers also experiencing similar impacts.
And for consumers, do you think that'll definitely mean price rises, or possibly even empty shelves of some products?
It could mean price rises in certain foodstuffs, particularly sort of field vegetables, where the UK produces a lot of its own demand at this time of year. It will probably certainly mean certain crops like potatoes and vegetables looking different. Smaller potatoes is one thing that many farmers have said will be an issue, and certainly price rises for things like cauliflower and brassicas.
Tom Lancaster from the Environment and Climate Intelligence Unit. The newly elected First Minister in Scotland, John Swinney, has been speaking about the future for Scottish farmers and crofters while touring the country visiting summer agricultural shows. Earlier this year, Scotland's new post-Brexit 4-tier support system was finalised. Farmers will still receive 70% of their state funding through a direct subsidy, although they must now do more for climate and nature. The government's also announced grants of up to £20,000, totalling £14.25 million, available to all farmers and crofters under the Future Farming Investment Scheme. This hot, dry summer hasn't hit farmers in Scotland quite as hard as southern England, but some areas are now considered to be in what Scotland terms water scarcity. I asked John Swinney what the situation is in relation to water availability for farmers.
In the course of the last few days, there has been some welcome rainfall, which will help gradually to replenish supplies. And we have some restrictions in place in a limited number of occasions on the ability to abstract water from river systems.
Have you got any plans for contingency? Because it's not just this year, is it? This could be a longer-term problem.
Got to explore some of the issues about the sustainability of arrangements in the future. Farmers in Scotland are able to, and crofters are able to benefit from access to basic farm payments. But we do look for other opportunities to enable farmers to adapt to the new challenges that are emerging, principally around about the changes in the climate. So the Future Farming Investment Fund is additional funding which will enable them to improve their business operations to greater levels of sustainability and to take account of some of the climate challenges. And we had the first tranche of that scheme last year. We'll open the next tranche later on this year.
There are concerns, though, that the last time your government had a scheme like this, demand massively outstripped the available budget.
I think that's going to be an inevitability about some of these schemes because there will be such an appetite to invest. And we've learnt lessons from the last scheme, so we are trying to make sure that the resources are deployed in a way that makes the maximum impact on the objectives of the scheme in the face of what I recognise will be a significant level of demand for financial support.
Now, the wildfire in the Cairngorms has been devastating. We spoke to the head of the national park last week. There is a big debate in Scotland between how to deal with wildfires, how to manage the landscape with regard to farming, environment and shooting. Where do you stand on the control of wildfires? You know, you've been criticised for not sending in helicopters soon enough or not declaring a state of emergency soon enough with the Cairngorms. Are you going to be changing how you prepare for future wildfires?
You've got to be prepared to learn from every particular instance. The wildfire in the Cairngorms has been devastating, and I pay tribute to the very broad range of individuals and organisations who've helped us to deal with this situation. It's been a cumulative and community effort to get the wildfire under control. And I believe the resources have been in place with aerial support from within 24 hours of the fire starting. But we've got to learn lessons about the availability of aerial support, because we obviously don't need aerial support 365 days in the year, but we have a contract that enables us to access that resource, and we have been able to do so consistently. I think the wildfire in the Cairngorms raises some important and significant issues about the management of the natural environment, because one of the key tools in containing the fire has been the establishment of fire breaks. I saw when I visited the site myself the containing effect of the fire breaks that had been created by Forest and Land Scotland. But not all of these fire breaks are endorsed by all voices in the debate.
Can you say where you stand on controlled burning as part of the management of moorland?
Controlled burning can be carried out under licence, but of course not all land managers want to do that. We will get people around the table, and that's the only way we can navigate our way through this. I acknowledge there are different approaches to land management, and I understand and I respect the views and the perspectives of people. But I also hear the outrage that has been expressed about the loss of natural habitat because of the wildfires. So in that context, we have to carefully design an approach to land management that commands the confidence of as many people as we can, and also provides us with sufficient resilience to enable us to withstand the effect of a factor which is now going to become a much more significant issue in the years to come.
Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney. That's all from us today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.